Hey everybody, this is your last call for insight, and I would like to say hello and welcome to everyone on this wonderful Thursday evening. We are going to do a very quick live stream. I just wanted to do a short news update for those that haven't heard in regards to the Jussie Smollett verdict. It actually came out very, very, very recently. Former Empire actor Jussie Smollett was sentenced Thursday today to 30 months of felony probation, ordered to pay restitution of more than $120,000 and a $25,000 fine, and spend 150 days in jail for making false reports to police that he was the victim of a hate crime in January 2019. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring up a picture of him for those of you that are unfamiliar with what he looks like. This is a picture of him with his family. And again, this whole incident actually unfolded where he hired two African gentlemen, shown here, to actually stage a hate crime, and this was during the time when Trump was actually running for presidency, since he had made accusations that his assailants were wearing MAGA hats and making homosexual slurs about him. Then when it came out that he had made up the story, he actually hired these two individuals and paid them via check, because of course, I don't know why he would ever pay by check. That's like, if you're thinking that there's no paper trail, the check itself is a paper trail. But obviously he got caught. There were a whole lot of issues regarding this particular incident, and again, not really rehashing old news, but I think it's definitely worth noting in regards to this particular incident as it unfolded. And today's topic: is a man's worth reduced if his word is worth nothing? And again, we're going to remove Mr. Smollett from this particular discussion, but it's still something that I believe is worth noting. Is, again, and I'll rephrase it, is a man's worth less if his word is worth nothing? And I think, being a man myself, and again, I can only speak for myself, I think if I literally had nothing, if I had no money, if I had no job, really all that I have is my word, my identity, and my image, I guess, if you want to call it that. And I mean my image as far as how I try to put myself out there, whether it's during business or within my friends or within whatever circles that I'm trying to actively participate in. If I come off as someone that just blows smoke up people's butt every day, all day long, then either, especially if the lies come out, that either the people in my circle won't want to deal with me, or I will over time prove myself to be unreliable. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges when it comes to managing your life, is life always has a particular method of either catching up. We're all busy. Time is one of those limited resources, especially if you're trying to upgrade or get to the next level of whatever path that you're walking, whether it's, getting that promotion, getting, a higher salary. Maybe you're trying to transition, trying to network and meet new people. And I think we are all guilty of becoming too busy, but that's just one of those things that, especially when you're young, and again, I don't want to put any pressure or just make any outlandish claims, especially for any of my young subscribers. This is nothing personal. When I was, young, from, let's just say, after 10 to maybe early 20s, mid 20s, it just seems, and again, this is just reflecting back during that time, it seems like the time of that age range in between the years of 10 to roughly 20, mid 20s, that time went so exceptionally quick. And again, I think it really just depends on, I guess, your everyday lifestyle. And again, I have some really good memories from when I was younger, as well as some very bad memories when I was younger. And I think it's worth noting on both of those. When the bad things were happening, it seemed like time stopped. But when I was able to get past that, it just seemed like time went by so quickly. And I think that's one of the luxuries that we have living in America is, especially when you're a child, I think it's exceptionally important for children to at least be able to experience and enjoy at least part of their childhood, to be able to at least have some part of their lifestyle that is extremely pure, if you want to call it that. And again, this is just me speaking for myself, but I think it's worth noting as we get older, we all experience, more responsibility, more avenues that begin to take up more of our time, whether it's once you get to high school, you start participating in sports competitively, either to get scholarships or if it's something that you're actively interested in. Say if it's, getting that first time job, whether it's during the school year or maybe during the summer. And that can range from everything from bagging groceries to possibly being a lifeguard or whatever jobs that are available in your area depending upon opportunity. But I think being able to manage that time, especially when you're younger, as well as fostering those relationships. And I think that's one of the things that is becoming the greatest challenge for a lot of people that haven't really been able to either vet their sources or double check their sources, especially with the age of the internet. And we're kind of past, I think we're kind of past the golden age of the internet, just because the internet is fairly established all around the world. And whether or not you have internet at your home, most public libraries do offer the internet for free. And it can be accessed by anyone, whether you have a library card or not. They usually have a guest pass to where you can use the internet for maybe 1 to 3 hours. So the information is out there, but there's a lot of misinformation that's out there too. And I think that's especially important, especially now that we're kind of connected to each other, whether for good or for bad, is being able to weed out all those bad sources, all those inaccurate informations. And that's one thing that I kind of took for granted, especially when I was in high school or possibly in college, was when you would write a paper, your teacher would say, okay, make sure you cite your sources. You have to at least use 3 to 5 or sometimes even more sources, and they have to be of different types. They have to be a book, internet website, and or radio, and then use the appropriate sources. And I think the one benefit of that, especially during that time, is making sure that the information that you're collecting when you write your paper, and this is kind of one thing that kind of boggles me, especially when seeing some of the news that some of these news agencies put out there. And again, we try to keep a neutral stance here on this channel, so I'm not going to necessarily point fingers at any specific channel, but it just seems like the amount of inaccuracies for public news, and if it does become accurate, then the news channels don't necessarily put out a formal apology for any inaccurate information that they put out there, which is just mind-boggling. So going back to what first started today's conversation in regards to Smollett, after the judge announced his sentence, Smollett lowered his mask and said he was innocent. Your Honor, I respect you, I respect the jury, but I did not do this, the actor told the judge before turning to the court. I am not suicidal, and if anything happens to me when I go in there, I did not do it to myself. And you must all know that. I think the one thing, and I think this is a very, we'll perhaps look over this particular statement. He's going to jail, he's not going to prison. That's the first biggest difference. And again, jail is not necessarily a happy place either, but there's something distinctly different in between the two. I have visited both before in my life, and I'm very thankful that I've made good enough choices to where I don't need to be in either one of those. But I think from his perspective, looking at the impact that his choices have made, especially with hiring the two men and then committing not only these staged hate crimes that wasted resources and everything, but his reputation is damaged. Whether, again, he's been convicted, but whether or not, I guess if we still want to stay neutral, regardless if he did this or not, his reputation is damaged and his word is damaged. So how, if you were in this particular situation where, let's just say, whether you did it or you didn't do it, but you have this comeuppance or this punishment that comes with whatever associated with your name or your image comes up, how do you go about fixing your name or fixing your image? I'd be very curious to see if he acts or becomes a public actor again, or if any place wants to pick him up after he serves his time, after he completes his 5-year plan of probation, after he pays his fines and then pays the restitution. How he goes about, starting to walk a better path. I think something like that can be exceptionally challenging. I think in general, it's good to hope for the best in people, but everyone walks a different path. We all have challenges that we have to deal with. We all have strengths. We all have weaknesses, and we all have temptation. And I think in the future, depending upon which path that Mr. Smollett decides to walk, how far will he need to walk before people begin again to take him seriously? Not necessarily that they'll forget. And again, I think with the news, especially with famous people, it's one of those things that over time people do forget. However, it just takes that one person to remember, and depending upon if they have it out for you or how the message is portrayed, it can be exceptionally challenging as well as frustrating to come back from that. Cook County Judge James Lynn spoke for more than 30 minutes before announcing Smollett's sentence, telling the actor he wrote the script and picked the actors for the hoax, and that his premeditation for the act was an aggravating factor in the case. And this, of course, is after Smollett actually arrived late to his own sentencing. And that's definitely one thing that you do not want to do is, regardless if you have to go to court for anything, it doesn't matter what it is, if it's a fine for speeding, if it's child custody, if it's child support, if it's a actual crime against you, regardless if it is the early parts of the trial or the actual sentencing, is one thing you do not want to do is piss off the judge, no matter what. Typically, and again, I don't work in that field, but typically judges are usually in at least somewhat of a positive mood during the beginning parts of the day, and depending upon the types of cases that go on, especially if there's reschedules and everything else, they tend to either get slightly moody or broody as time goes by. And again, this is just pure speculation. If there's anyone who practices law out there, I apologize ahead of time, but this is just me kind of interpreting what I see. But if you have seen otherwise, let me know. I'd be curious to hear from you. Leave a comment down in the comment section. But I think it's definitely one of those things that in any job, especially if you have to deal with bull crap every day, that the job will get to you. So let's say if we were working at a grocery store and we bag and carry out groceries, if it's normal on, let's say, a Wednesday that you have to deal with rude customers that buy exceptionally heavy stuff or anything like that, or we work at Home Depot. Let's say we work at Home Depot. There's a customer that has no business buying the types of materials that they buy, and you may be the only person that's helping out that day. And when I say they have no business buying it, it's like if you're 86 years old and you buy 2 pallets worth of concrete bags, which can be 80 pounds each for each bag. So if you have a pallet of bagged concrete, which can have 20 to 40 bags on it, and then you have your little Chevy, C10 or S10, Ford S10 pickup or whatever the model is, and you ask that one 18-year-old carry-out assistant to load all that concrete in your truck, I would say you were crazy. Especially when you're making a purchase like that. I know you're trying to save yourself some money. Just get it delivered. So for days like that, for employees that have to work those types of jobs, there are little quirks, or we won't call them quirks, but little parts of the job that you learn that are definitely not fun, not glamorous. They wear on you. And over time, even in the short term, in the process of the day, they wear on you. So that's just kind of what I've seen in the courtroom. Fortunately, I've been fortunate enough not to really be in the courtroom for my own sake or for my own issues. I mainly go there when either if there's public viewings, if there's youth in particular that I'm trying to mentor. It's helpful to be there to show support for the individual. However, depending upon the types of cases, it's also, or it may be more appropriate not to attend and allow a little bit of privacy depending upon the circumstances. Going back to the case, the judge said, "There's a side of you that has this arrogance," Judge Lynn said to Mr. Smollett. "There's a side to you that has this arrogance and selfishness and narcissism that's just disgraceful," the judge said. "You are not a victim of a racial hate crime. You are not a victim of a phobic hate crime." Sorry, I had to censor myself because of the YouTube algorithm. "You're just a charlatan pretending to be a victim of a hate crime, and that's shameful." Smollett, 39, was found guilty in December on 5 counts of felony disorderly conduct for making false reports about what he said was an anti-black hate crime. All in all, this case, especially when it was unfolding, was a mess. Let's go back to this other picture. I remember the first time I saw this picture, I was watching TLA, and the picture of the quote-unquote noose. This is like some clothesline cord that he tried to tie into an actual noose, and it just looks like a mess. It looks like an absolute mess. And I think one thing that you can really tell about a person, especially if they claim to be outdoorsy, or let's say a Chad, or manly, I work with my hands, give them a piece of rope and see if they can actually tie a knot, like a very simple knot. It doesn't have to be anything fancy, but just tie a simple knot that will actually hold. And I'm not saying what we will say that a slip knot is not allowed. Tie any other knot other than a slip knot. And the reason why I say don't tie a slip knot is a lot of people that I've met, they couldn't even tie a square knot. Like, they would tie a slip knot and it would come undone. Obviously, he hasn't handled rope a whole lot working on his TV series, or I'm assuming he wasn't in Boy Scouts or what's called Scouts now, just because that whole thing just looks like an utter mess. And if he actually knew how to tie, first off, no respectable person that could actually tie something would actually claim this mess. And second, if someone put a noose around your neck, you wouldn't keep it on your neck like it's a Texas bow tie until the police showed up. You would immediately want that thing off your neck, especially if someone was attempting assault on you. But that's just my opinion. So I don't know. I really honestly don't know how he thought this was a good idea. But there are all types of people in the world. Some good, some bad, and some that just make very poor decisions. However, it's just one of those things. All you can really do is try to make the best choices for yourself in life. And I think that's one of the things that's really worth noting is, if you imagine our everyday life being a movie, you are the star of your own video game. You are the main role. And at the same time, that can be a very narcissistic thing to say or believe. However, the only thing that you can really control is your own actions. And I'll say that once more. I think going out in the world and doing whatever it is that you decide to do, there are many challenges. You interact with many different people. You go to many different places, and there are many things that you cannot control. I think it's especially important to note that while there may be that person at work or, driving down the street, there's that one person that is probably always late to work, so they drive like a butthead and they drive recklessly, or they cut you off, or they give you the finger for no reason. You're standing at the bus stop, guy drives by for no reason, honks his horn and flips you off. There are so many things in the world that you can't control, but you have to try your best to control and make good decisions for yourself. And that's ultimately what life is all about, and what separates highly successful people from average people, or average people from people who make exceptionally bad choices, is trying to find and trying to be consistent with the type of choices, especially when the pressure is on. So take that for what you will. I know this was a little bit of a rant today, but I think at least touching on that keynote or that story in regards to the Jussie Smollett verdict, and then the short discussion of what I like to call rule number one is being able to go out into the world and you control what you say, you control what you do, while others may say or do bad things, try to, tear you down or anything like that. It's still especially important to still be consistent and make choices that are in your favor, make positive choices. But you can let me know what you think down in the comment section. Today's topic, the value of your word, and the question is, if your word is worth less, or let me rephrase that, if you do not keep your word, or if you're considered untrustworthy, do you think your value to your circle, your friends, your family, do you think you provide less value to your friends or your family? But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close things out. I will be releasing the BFTM series here soon. I actually have number 2 and number 3 done. I'm trying to cut them down to put into shorts. That way, for those of you that like to watch content on your phone, you'll be able to watch it. And then for the rest of you that enjoy watching on the computer, it's actually going to be a really good series. The videos are a little bit longer. Number 2 is actually 2 minutes long, and it will be split into number 2 and number 3 for the short series, since they can only be 60 seconds long. It's been very quiet in regards to the Fresh and Fit podcast or the Real Daytime. Neither one of them have responded back to me in regards to the initial video that I sent out to them, and that's perfectly fine. I also will do the 1,000 subscriber celebration next week. I have an interesting story regarding that, but we'll just hold out on that for the time being. But I hope everyone's having a wonderful week and a wonderful day. Tomorrow's Friday for those of you that have to work. I wish you all the best. And remember, you're always welcome here, but we sure as hell aren't for everyone. Thank you, and good night.